Good morning and welcome to my hobby table. It is October 1st, 2025. I can't believe it's already October. Where has the summer gone? So, today I think, is going to be a very interesting video of engine talk because, as the title and the splash screen shows, I'm going to be discussing and showing and doing a lot of telling, or at least more showing and probably less telling. I don't know, we'll see. About 3 and possibly touch on 4 classic OS two-stroke engines. So one of the things that I love so much about doing what I'm doing with the engines anyway, and other aspects of the hobby, is that no matter how long you've done it, there's always something new to learn. And in these last week and a half, through the process of things that I'm going to explain and show today on the table, I've learned a lot. And I want to share those things with you. So with that said, let's go straight to the table and get on with this. Okay, so here we are on the table, and what I'm showing you initially is different than what the initial screenshot or thumbnail for the video is, and we'll get to that eventually also. What I've got here on the stand, or the stand, not yet, it will be, not yet, is a classic OS BX1 engine. Now, there is a story, obviously, that goes along with how I got this engine and all the things that led up to this video. So I'm going to try to go through these things in chronological order the best I can. So this started, I'll just start by rotating this thing around and showing you this beautiful engine. So first, this BX engine came out in 1983. And I was contacted by someone I never heard from before that got my email address from the channel. His name's Bob, and he's really into marine engines of all sorts. But he happened to have this engine, and he makes stands for his engines, which I think is really cool. And he was so gracious to send this stand to me. So he offered me this engine and said, hey, I've got this engine. It's an airplane engine. I'm really into marine engines. Do you want this thing? Can we make a deal? And I was like, this thing looks fantastic. And of course, I was immediately like, heck yes, I want to try to find a way to get this engine so that I can run it. And he really wants me to run this engine, which is going to happen. So the thing with this engine is it's a beautiful OS BX1 engine, but the carburetor that he had on it wasn't the correct carb for it. It was an 8B carb, I believe, and I did a little bit of research here, and I've forgotten some of the things that I was supposed to write down. So maybe I need to go back and look at that. But it was an 8B carburetor, which was, let me pause here and go and make sure I get all the right carburetor information. Okay, my apologies. So the original images he sent me of this engine were of an 8B carburetor. Now, the 8B carburetor was actually a carb not designed for this engine. It wasn't supposed to go on this engine, and it also had a few missing parts. The 8B carburetor was one that went on like engines like the 61, it went on a 77 ducted fan and a couple other engines. So I was like, well, that carb isn't right, and there's parts missing of it. The throttle stop screw assembly and the throttle arm are missing. So I was like, I really don't, I'm not going to do this engine thing here because of this carb. So I went off. I still really wanted this engine. I went off on a search for trying to find the proper 7D carb for this engine. And that leads me to, I'm going to take this off here for a moment. And that leads me to what I found in my search for a 7D carb, which was this. This is an OS 90 FSR engine. Now the 90 FSR engine dates back to 1978. So I'm looking for a carb, and I found a carb that I wanted because the 7D carbs are really hard to come by. And the carb just so happened to be wrapped around this engine. I was like, wow, I don't know about that. But anyway, so here's part 2 of this video. So looking for a carb for this BX1, I found and acquired this. And now we're going to digress to show a little bit about this 90 FSR. As I said, 1978, this engine came with some instructions that the original instructions I had to tape up because they were pretty messed up. And it comes with the instructions for the 7D carb that comes on this engine. So I was like, oh great, there's the carb I need. So the one thing that's not correct with this box and this engine is this decal sheet is not period correct by any means, and I'll show you what a period correct decal sheet should look like shortly. And so many of you know that when you get one of these FSRs, which is just a spectacular engine, this 90 FSR engine, as you can see the box, it doesn't come with an exhaust. And I was like, well, if I get this engine, now I've got the 7D carb anyway, that's, you know, the most appropriate one for the BX1. And of course this came with a beautiful 7D carb. And this is an engine that's never been run. This is a brand new in-box engine. And of course it has this nice big wide opening that you would see on certain exhausts, which this is another thing I learned. So we're going to be talking multi-levels here about carbs and exhausts and engines, and this is going to have a lot of information. I'm going to try to talk through it fairly quickly to minimize the amount of time of this video, but there's a lot here. So I was like, okay, well, it's got this, okay, that's cool, but what if I get this engine and I can't make a deal with Bob and I don't get the BX1, then I'm going to need to find an exhaust for this engine. And I knew that this engine comes with this adapter. And in the past, I had the 91 FSR engine. Now, the 91, I had one 91 FSR, that was probably 3-5 years ago, something like that. I don't know, it wasn't 3 years ago because it was in Florida, so it was more than that. And the 90 FSR engine came out in 1985, and it looked very similar to this, same size and all that good stuff. But there was a big difference between those two engines that we're going to get into here very shortly. So I'm sitting here, I'm like, okay, I got this thing, it's coming to me. What if I don't get the BX1? Because the BX1, as you can see, has an exhaust. What if Bob and I can't make a deal? Then I just got this engine and I don't have an exhaust. So I went out searching for an exhaust. And like I said, I'm going in chronological order here. So I went out searching for an exhaust because I was just absolutely certain that an 855 exhaust went on this engine. And I was really not correct. I was way wrong, because the 855 actually does go on and fit the 91 FSR, but not the 90 FSR. And I'm going to show you that exactly. So I had in my mind the history of the 91 FSR that I had, and I knew I had an 855 exhaust. So I went out and I managed to find an 855 exhaust, and it came to me just like this. It came in just this bag. And many of you have probably seen the box, and maybe you can go look at that FSR, 91 FSR video of mine, because I show how this actually came when you ordered it separately. It came in a box with red label on it, or red lettering, and it had an adapter plate so that it could be adapted to at least 2 other sizes of engines. Well, I get this before this arrives. And I pull this thing out and I'm like, ah, cool, this is awesome. And then I'm like, oh, cool, this is not awesome. This adapter doesn't even come close to working with this big exhaust. I mean, not even close. So then I started thinking, well, what the hell have I done here now? And I went and I read the review article that's specifically for the 91 or the 90 FSR engine. And it shows a very different exhaust on the 91 or on the 90 than what was on the 91. So this adapter does go on this engine. It actually goes like this. But you see here the adapter hole and the narrow slit here. That's because this engine, when it was sold and reviewed, it actually was using a 744 exhaust, and they said in that video or that review that that's a very restrictive exhaust. And that leads me down this next little rabbit hole, because I just so happen to have in my possession that I got a year or 2 ago this engine, this classic OS engine. Now, as you can see, this box is larger, but it's not a larger engine, it's a smaller engine, but this engine at least includes an exhaust. And this is the 61 FSR. Now the 61 FSR was released, and this is the ring version, not the ABC, was released in 1980. So, like I said, this is a multi-layered, multi-leveled video. So now we're going to look at this engine. And here's the marketing literature. And here is the period correct decals that should come with both of these engines, not this. So this is what came with this engine, which came from another more modern engine completely. So we're going to another level here. Now we're talking decals. This is what the period correct decal sheet should look like. Okay, so we're enough of the decal sheet thing. So here's this engine. And this is how the 61 FSR came packaged and all that good stuff, and it has the carb. And we'll talk about the carb too, because there's another little level there that we're going to get into. So here's this beautiful 61 FSR engine. Really no reason to pull the engine out and show you other than it's cool. But, so here's the thing is, in the review article for the 90 FSR, they showed it running with this, the 744 exhaust, which just so happens to fit this adapter perfectly. So I went out and found this, and I didn't even need it because it doesn't fit this engine. I could run it with this engine, or could run it with this exhaust, because this is actually the exhaust that was shown, at least, it wasn't sold with the engine, but it was shown in the review to be the one that goes with that engine. I'm going to leave this kind of upright like that. So the 744, and you can see they even said in the review it was a very restrictive exhaust for this displacement size engine, and I believe that. Hang on, I'm looking for something here real quick. Oh, yeah, hang on. Put this little dealie back on here. Why can't I get this bag out? So I think I'm about to get upset because I think I just noticed that I don't have a high-speed needle for this engine, which means I'm going to have to send a message to the seller and say, hey, I don't have a high-speed needle for this engine. And that kind of, I don't think I misplaced it because it's not in here. So that kind of pisses me off. So now I got to go and try and find a high-speed needle. I don't understand why I didn't notice that to begin with, but I didn't. So anyway, where was I? I was talking about exhausts. It did come with tools. There's just no high-speed needle in here. So now I have this 855 exhaust that I really don't need because I was able to work a deal with Bob, and I got this exhaust and the proper adapter that will adapt to, well, it won't adapt to that engine. It'll adapt to a 91 FSR if I had another 91 FSR. So the bottom line is I got two of these 855 exhausts and I don't really need it. So the other thing I was thinking was, well, you know what? I've got another exhaust I found that could potentially fit this thing, which is not as restrictive as the 744, and it's this Rossi exhaust. Look at that. Very little restriction there. Very different openings. So this one, and it's more of a tune type silencer. Now this came with a couple of Rossi engines that were given to me also. So I was thinking, well, I could maybe run this 91 FSR, which now I'm really pissed because there's not a high-speed needle. I could run it with this exhaust because this exhaust just so happens to really fit really well on this adapter, kind of. So I think the holes line up pretty well, and of course this one's a slotted hole. However, these holes on the adapter are larger than those, so if I were to try to use this, I would have to drill these holes out a little bit and maybe kind of cut in here just a hair because I'm not entirely sure, since I don't have the holes drilled out, I'm not entirely sure that that would work. But I mean, that is an option for potentially running that engine with this engine with a more or less restrictive exhaust than what's on here. So let's go to carburetors. So this engine, obviously, without a high-speed needle now, which I'm really gonna get pissed over, does have the proper 7D carb, which is the carb that was sold on this engine. But this 61 FSR came with a 7M carb. The 7M, and there was another 7 carb like this that has, they're basically, one was a helicopter carb and this one was really designed specifically for pattern, I think, engines, or FAI, because I think that's what I read about the 7M carb, is that it was, the instructions for it was that it was designed for FAI competition. So this, you know, 61 FSR came with this carb, but guess what? This carb also fits on this BX1. It came with this nice little plug to keep it plugged up. So this is a perfect fit also. Let me move some of this stuff out of the way here now. So now I've got 2 carbs for this engine. I've got the 7D and the 7M. So I'm still sitting here kind of reeling and pissed about the high-speed needle thing on that 90 FSR engine. I need to contact the seller about that because that sucks. But so if anybody, Harvey, if you're watching this and you've got a high-speed needle that'll fit on a 7D carb, well, I sure could use one. So that's kind of the long story of how I managed to get these classic OS engines and some of the options that are potentially available. Unfortunately, now I have 2 of these 855 exhausts and I really don't need this one. So there's a very good chance that if anybody's looking for an 855 exhaust just like this, they've already got the adapter. Because this exhaust also goes on the BGX one. And the only difference is that on the BGX one, they put an extension on here that's probably about that big. So you'll see this same end piece, but you'll have an extension. So it's a much longer exhaust, but it's the same exhaust. And it, believe me, it probably uses every bit of that exhaust area. So I've got this. I don't really need it. It's probably going to be available if somebody's interested or needs an 855 exhaust, because I certainly don't need 2 when I only have 1 engine that it would fit on. So that is the long story of how I managed to acquire 2 classic OS 2-stroke engines, and the things I learned. And one of the things I just learned today, which I'm not happy about also, some of the things I learned about exhausts and these 91, these FSR style engines, and what carbs and what exhausts fit them. So I know this has been kind of a long and convoluted video, but hopefully you learned something, and you'll definitely be seeing this on the stand very soon. In fact, when I take it on the stand, if I can come up with, I mean, I'm sure this high-speed needle will fit in this carb, so I could just use these 2 carbs and swap the needle, but it still just kind of rubs me wrong that I'm missing that needle. So I need to acquire a needle, high-speed needle for that to make that engine complete. But look for this engine to be on the stand here very soon. And of course, this one probably will make the stand. Like I said, it's October 1st. Time is slipping through the hourglass very quickly, so I'm not sure how much longer I'm going to have to run engines, but we're going to do the best we can to get as many in as we can, in addition to all the other things that I have going on. So thank you for tuning in and listening to this, and hope you learned something.